Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Racing Rundown. Aidan Molinaro here with Liam Molinaro. We last saw you guys in the Kentucky Derby show where we broke down our selections for the Derby, the Kentucky Oaks, as well as we each gave out some value plays there on the undercard. We were able to hit on a few of those, so hopefully you guys, the viewers out there, took advantage. Liam, obviously we have a lot to talk about in this show. We're breaking down the Preakness Stakes today, which is coming up on Saturday, the second jewel of the Triple Crown. But first, Liam, we have to get to Sovereignty and talk about that amazing Derby run and win he had a couple weekends ago. What are your thoughts, Liam?
Yeah, no, that race kind of played out like I had hoped it would come out. Sovereignty was able to run down Journalism. Journalism got a little bit of a jump on him, but Sovereignty was just the better horse on the day. He obviously is skipping the Preakness. His connections came out and said that they are pointing to the Belmont Stakes. So we don't get a rematch here. We do see Journalism back in this field, though. He comes back in 2 weeks. It's one of the better Preaknesses I think we've seen in the last couple of years, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, no, it's not really the biggest field, but it's kind of that quality over quantity we're getting with the 9 horse field in this year's Preakness. Obviously, the max being 14, but only 9 chose to enter. Yeah, and just what I wanted to add to that Kentucky Derby, I think it was amazing too that Sovereignty and Journalism both came in and the mud didn't seem to affect them. They each ran their races just like we kind of said it would. We had both of them in our top two, but in the wrong order. So hopefully you guys had them in some sort of exacta box there. Liam was also able to give out Baeza at a pretty long price in his superfecta, and then I had Final Gambit in there in my fourth spot. So hopefully you guys also mixed that up a little bit and took advantage of those plays as well. So let's. Oh, you had another thought, Liam?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think it was one of the rare derbies that I think the best three horses in the race ran one, two, three. Like coming
Nice.
in, they were the three best horses with the best numbers on paper. Baez obviously running second to Journalism in that Santa Anita Derby. Everyone's concerned about Trip, but I think the best horses ran one, two, three, maybe even four with Final Gambit. We'll see later in the year, but no, I think it was a very clean run of the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, other than the start with Citizen Bowl kind of drifting out of the gate, but not a lot of bad trips coming to the top of the stretch. You know, Rispoli kind of kept Journalism in the clear. Sovereignty just followed him. It was a heck of a horse race.
Honestly, it was pretty crazy with all the weather going on, and then we see such a formful derby like that go on, right? I mean, they led up to the race talking about Rich Strike, obviously flashing back to Mind That Bird, some shockers that always come in the derby. So they have all of us thinking some crazy things going to happen, and then it comes up extremely formful, like you said. So, no, definitely that was really interesting to see, but also glad that we got to see the best horses throw down, where usually in the Derby, sometimes the favorites have major excuses and we don't get to see them run to their full potential. So definitely a little bummed coming into this Preakness that we don't get to see the Sovereignty Journalism rematch, but I am confident that we will see that rematch down the road in some of the biggest 3-year-old races in the rest of the year, maybe the Travers, Haskell, maybe even the Breeders' Cup later on at Del Mar. Liam, what do you say we get into this year's Preakness field?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, everybody, the Preakness is $2 million this year. It's run at 1.3 miles, as it always is, at Pimlico Race Course in Baltimore, Maryland. The number one horse, I'm going to start off goal oriented for trainer Bob Baffert. He is 2 for 2 lifetime. Gets Flavian Pratt back in the saddle, who won on this horse in a first condition optional allowance race at Churchill Downs. That was in the slop on Kentucky Derby Day. So he showed a lot of things there and proved a lot of doubters wrong in only his second career start by getting that win. It was his first time two turns, first time shipping, first time in the mud. So a lot of things were proved wrong there, although he has to take another jump up in class here. A pretty big ask for a horse that's only run 2 times, but all the talent is there. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, obviously we were on hand on Santa Anita Derby Day when he broke his maiden. I thought it was an interesting run race for a Baffert first time starter. Usually we see him come out with a lot of gate speed and right up on the pace. You know, he kind of didn't really break. They kind of kept him last. He didn't really like the kickback, and then he came absolutely storming down the lane. He won by 3 1/4, but it honestly should have been more. And then he comes back obviously on the Kentucky Derby undercard. I thought he ran a better race than it looked on paper. Um, he kind of they came to him at the top of the stretch and he was able to kick clear. He got the same number as he did first time out. I think that was because first time out he just ran a really impressive race for a first time starter. So I wouldn't be too concerned that he didn't take a huge jump on the numbers. That being said, he does draw the one hole here with Flavien Prat. I think they have to try and send from this spot. Bob Baffert again gets the one hole in a Triple Crown race, obviously with Citizen Bowl in the Derby. But I think he's going to have to be forwardly placed in here, and we'll see. It's an ambitious jump for his third career start, but he could be a player in here.
Yeah, I definitely think with goal oriented, the trip is going to make or break this race for him. If he can be comfortable and not get a lot of kickback in his face, which, I mean, he got a little bit of that at Santa Anita, like you said, closing from the back of the pack there on his debut, but we shall see. I also think it's interesting, like you said, whether he's going to send out of the gate or what Pratt does. So everybody definitely be looking for that on Preakness Day. Let's move on to the two horse. This is the one that everybody's going to be talking about all weekend. Journalism, obviously, very deserving favorite. The only blemish really in his whole career was his debut sprinting, and then he was undefeated around two turns up until that Kentucky Derby effort that we all saw, and he was extremely valiant, obviously running second behind Sovereignty. So I don't think you can knock him in any way, other than the only thing is coming back in 2 weeks. But we have seen Michael McCarthy say in recent articles that we shouldn't really be worried about the 2 weeks because he ran 3 races as a juvenile over a span of 7 weeks, and those were all wins. And like Mike McCarthy says, he doesn't think the quick turnaround will really be an issue. So I'm not really too worried about that either. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about the 2 week comeback. I like what the connections did. They didn't come out right after the Derby and say they were running. They took their time. They took, right up until they drew for this race and said they were going to run. And this horse is obviously so fit. They don't really have to do much with him. 2 weeks from the Derby to the Preakness, and he obviously ran huge. So we'll see if he bounces out of that Derby performance. I don't think so. I just saw a video of him galloping. Some people were concerned, like, oh, he looks tired. I wouldn't read too much into the training at all. This horse is one that just turns it on in the afternoon and always fires. And certainly if he does fire, he should win this race.
Yeah, I agree. I could see he's definitely the most likely win candidate, and I saw that video too of him galloping. I think that's pretty normal. Like you said, when the light bulb goes on, journalism knows the difference between practice in the morning and game time in the afternoon. Let's move on to the three horse, though. This horse goes out for Dwayne Lucas, American Promise. He is the only other horse other than journalism who is whipping back on this 2 week turnaround from the Derby to the, Sandman is the number 7. We'll get to him later. He is coming out of the Derby as well. Those are the three, and then the rest are new shooters. But American Promise, he's got some tactical speed. He obviously kind of got wiped out, like you said. Citizen Bowl took out a few horses when he veered out at the start there in the Derby. So it's American Promise, he pressed the pace on the backside, but then just gave way. Dwayne Lucas, though, obviously remains confident, as always, going in here. What do you think about this one's chances, Liam?
Yeah, I don't think it's any surprise that Wayne Lucas is coming back in 2 weeks here. Um, you know, he ran all, he kind of got shut down at the 3/8 pole in the Derby. I think Wayne Lucas said when Nick Juarez tried to split those horses, around the turn and he couldn't get through, the horse just kind of shut down. I just don't think this horse is talented enough for this field. Obviously, I didn't really like the Virginia Derby prep race. I thought that number was a little phony going into our Derby prep shows. But he's going to have to run back to that performance and probably even get a little bit better to be competitive in this spot. Wayne Lucas has won this race a bunch of times. He won it last year, so I'm not discounting this horse. I'm not going to say he has no shot, but he's definitely going to have to get a lot better.
I definitely agree, 100%, Liam. Let's go on to the 4 now. That is Heart of Honor. So this is a horse who last made his most recent start in the UAE Derby at Maidan. Ran a couple times at Maidan before that as well. Got beat a nose, ran second last time to Admire Daytona, who came back to run dead last in the Kentucky Derby. That obviously doesn't flatter his form. He goes out for trainer Jamie Osborne. What shot do you give this one, Liam?
Obviously we don't have a lot of data on this horse as far as buyers and time form figures, but obviously he was just beat by Admire Daytona, who didn't come back to flatter that form in the Kentucky Derby. I think this horse is going to be a little farther back. I think there's a lot of speed in this race. And, like you said, if he's mid-pack in those overseas races, I think he's going to be farther back. Maybe not dead last in here, but he's going to be in that second or third flight. And if he's taking that kickback, I'm just going to take a stand against this horse. No disrespect to him, but I'm not going to be willing to play this horse at whatever price he is.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely understand the connections wanting to take a shot in here. You only have a 3-year-old once. It's a classic race. He did get beat a nose in a pretty prestigious race in its own right, as in the UAE Derby. So why not take the chance? But yeah, I'm going to try to avoid this as a handicapper. Let's move on to the 5-horse, Pay Billy. He goes out for trainer Michael Gorham. Last time winning the Federico Tessio, which is a win in you're in for the Preakness. It always has been. It's that local prep race run at Laurel Park. The winner always gets into the Preakness. He is running. What do you think about this one, Liam? Obviously, it would be a great local story. He is going to go off at double-digit odds and be a long shot in here, but he is 4 for 8 lifetimes. He's a very solid runner. Modest purchase price last year at April OBS in 2024 for $60,000. So, like I said, would be a great story. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, I thought that was one of the better Tessio versions we've seen over the years. There were some horses coming from the Wood Memorial and the New York Prep Series. And this horse ran a good race. He got met at the top of the stretch and kicked clear to win. I just don't really think he stacks up against these horses personally. But definitely I'm going to be rooting for him because that would be a great local story.
Most definitely, and yeah, I like that he has a lot of tactical speed. He can sit up close near the lead, so it should be interesting what he does with some speed to his inside, as well as this next horse that I'm about to talk about, the number 6 River Thames, right to his outside, who also has some tactical speed for trainer Todd Pletcher. So this is definitely not really the local story. It's an opposite of that, owned by Windstar Farm. River Thames with Irad Ortiz in the saddle, who rode him to a 3rd place finish last time in the Bluegrass Stakes. But we have seen the form of that Bluegrass didn't really come back to flatter in the Kentucky Derby, with East Avenue and Burnham Square finishing off the board. But if you want to talk more about Burnham Square, he had some excuses in there. What do you think about River Thames, Liam, and how this all shakes out?
I definitely like what Pletcher has done here. They had the points for the Derby, but they said, the 10 furlongs probably isn't to his liking, so we're going to skip it, freshen him up a little bit for the Preakness. I have no knock on this horse. His first 2 races were excellent, and then he just gets run down by Sovereignty, and then he just couldn't get by East Avenue, and then Burnham Square eventually ran him down there in the Bluegrass. This horse is a very consistent runner. I think he's, a very likely candidate to finish in the trifecta. That being said, I thought he had every shot to win the Fountain of Youth in the Bluegrass, and he just couldn't get it done. And now he's going even longer in a mile and 3/16. So we'll see if he can get that distance.
All right. Well, I like it, Liam. Let's go on to the 7-horse Sandman, who I mentioned earlier. He is also coming out of the Kentucky Derby off of 2 weeks rest. He is obviously America's sweetheart with the part owner, popular TikToker Griffin Johnson. So he will be taking a lot of money, and that morning line is set at 4-1. So obviously the odds makers are thinking that he's going to take a lot of money on Saturday. I'm personally most likely going to try to fade this one, as he is a deep closer. He makes a grinding run. His most popular win in his career was the Arkansas Derby, where he got that dream setup behind that suicidal duel. So I'm going to try to stay away from this one. Do you agree, Liam, or how do you feel?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I didn't really think he had any excuse in the Kentucky Derby. First time on a sloppy track. I mean, I guess you could say that, but I thought, he was closing in Final Gambit, and Baeza and a couple other horses just went right by him around the far turn. And Jose Ortiz does jump off to a horse we'll talk about in a second here. John Velasquez has the ride for the first time. And like you said, with all his stories behind him, I think his price is going to get driven down. I don't think he should be anywhere near second choice in this field. We'll see if he goes off at that, but I am going to take a stand against this horse, and I'm with you on that.
Yeah, we are going to try to stay away from Sandman in this one. Let's move on to the 8-horse, though. It's a very interesting entrant that I want to talk a lot about. Is Clever Again, trained by Steve Asmussen. Jose Ortiz coming back to ride him for the third consecutive time. This is a horse who started off last year at Keeneland going 4.5 as a 2-year-old, dueled all the way down to the wire with a nice filly named Dreamaway, who went on to be a multiple stakes winner. So Dreamaway, super, super fast filly. That was in his first start, and then he was off all the way until the spring meet at Oaklawn this year, and he has routed twice in the maiden allowance, his win by 3 lengths, wire to wire, and then came back with a stakes victory going wire to wire as well in that spot in the Hot Springs, also at Oaklawn Park. What do you think about this one, Liam? $500,000 at the Keeneland sale, purchased by Winchell Thoroughbreds. What shot do you give this front runner?
I think he has a big shot in here. He's definitely one of the interesting newcomers in this spot. Both of his wins this year, he has gotten loose on the lead. I don't think that's the trip he's going to get in this race, but I mean, we don't know obviously, but I don't think he's a need the lead type. He's by American Pharoah. The mile and 316 shouldn't be a problem. Just watching his race last time out in the Hot Springs, he looks like he can run all day. So it'll be interesting to see if he doesn't get an easy lead, or maybe if he's even off the pace, if he can rate. He did get a huge number, second behind Journalism, as far as the numbers are concerned in this field, earning a 101 in the Hot Springs. I don't know who is behind him. Gaming and Perfect Force, those horses aren't great, but the way he did it, I thought was very visually impressive. And if he can even take a step forward from that, I think he's very competitive in this field.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I like the fact that at every point of call in his last 2 starts, he's been in front, but also more importantly, right out of the gate, he's always the first one to pop the gate. So I think that gate speed is going to help him, especially if he can get out like he has in his last 3 starts and get out there and poke his head out from that 8 box. I think that'll help him kind of cross over. With that being said, if the 1 stumbles or the 3 stumbles and somebody doesn't get out of the gate very cleanly, or they don't send as hard as we think they might, then I think Clever Again has a huge chance to upset this one. And 5-1 on the morning line, I think if you can get north of that number, I think it's very valuable as a win bet or even an exacta play. But let's move on. Last but not least, the number 9 horse Gosger for trainer Brendan Walsh. It's a very consistent runner. He is also lightly raced though, much like Clever Again and some others like Goal Oriented. So only run 3 times this colt by Nyquist. 2 wins and 1 second. So he really hasn't ever run a bad race in his life, his short career so far. Last time his grade 3 win coming in the Lexington, that was his first stakes victory. What shot do you give this one, Liam? He was pretty tactical in that win.
Yeah, I was definitely very impressed by his win in the Lexington. And I like what Brendan Walsh has said about this horse, too. It kind of rivals what he said about his other talented 3-year-old in East Avenue. He's kind of hard for him to train. He can't really figure that horse out. He said Gosger's a really straightforward horse. He gets better with every start, with every day. He's the son of Nyquist, who's obviously a classic winner. I think if this horse can take a step forward, I think he can be competitive in this spot. The numbers aren't going to blow anyone off the page, but I was visually impressed by his win in the Lexington, and I think the way this pace, looks to set up in here, I think he should get a very good trip.
Yeah, no, I definitely could see Gosger getting a pretty good trip. As long as he doesn't get hung out wide in that first turn from the 9 box and Size can work out some sort of trip, I think he could be very legit in here. Let's move on now. Do you want to give our top 3 selections for this one, unless you have anything else to add on anybody in the field, Liam?
Now let's get to the picks.
All right, let's get to our top 3. I am going to settle with the number 8 horse, Clever Again, on top for me. Like we said, this horse goes out for Steve Asmussen. I just like the fact that, like you said, he is out of a Galileo mare by American Pharoah. And in that debut race, he was dueling for second with Dreamaway. So maybe he can sit off. I don't think he really needs the lead, like you said. But I do hope he gets the lead in this spot. And I think he has a much better chance if he does. We shall see how it shakes out. I think he can be versatile, though. If they're going too slow, he could go take the lead. If they're going a little bit too fast, I think he could sit off either Goal Oriented or American Promise if they do want to go super fast up front early. So he's going to be my number 1 pick. Mainly, I'm trying to get some value here in the Preakness with that one as well, because my horse I have in the second spot is Journalism, who I absolutely love. I picked him in the Derby, ran second. I was able to still get that exacta box, luckily, with your help there with Sovereignty. Um, but yeah, Journalism, obviously most likely win candidate. I have to put him in here for second because I still do think he's going to run his race. It's just a matter of if he can go catch Clever again if he gets loose on the lead. So I am going to put him in that second spot for those reasons. My third spot, I'm going to River Thames, the 6 horse, just because, like you said, I think the 6 River Thames and the 9 Gosgar are very similar in that they are tactical runners and they're also very consistent. Obviously, Gosgar is a much better price, but I like that River Thames has kind of tested the upper waters of the 3-year-old division, if you want to phrase it like that. He got beat by Sovereignty, obviously, in the Fountain of Youth, so kind of showing that he can run with this, the top peers of his crop. So I like him for those reasons as well. And I think he can get a tactical trip just sitting in behind the speed. I don't think he's going to want to go out there and duel with the front runner. So I could see him sitting right behind the leaders and then kind of getting a nice trip and hopefully getting in there for third to complete the trifecta. What about you, Liam?
Yeah, I went to the number 2 Journalism in here. I'm not going to try and beat this horse like I did in the Derby. I think he just towers over this field, and personally, I think he might even be a decent win bet candidate in here. The morning line set at 8 to 5. I don't know if we'll go off at that. Personally, I think he should be like 2 or 3 to 5 in this field. But with a lot of horses taking money, popularity with Sandman, maybe goal oriented even, and Clever again, I think this horse is probably going to end up around 6 or 7 to 5, which is honestly decent value for how much he looks to be the best on paper in this field. And then for second, I did go to the number 9 Gosgar. Just trying to get a little price in there. He's 20 to 1 in the morning line. He might not go off that high. He does get Louis Size for the first time as Irad Ortiz jumps off to ride River Thames. But like I said, I love what Brendan Walsh has been saying about this horse. He's never run a bad race, and if he can take a step up from that last start out in the Lexington, figures to get a tactical trip in here. I'm gonna try and get him in that exacta at a price. For third, I did go to the number 8 Clever again for the Asmussen barn. This horse's last 2 races were just too impressive to not throw him in there for me. He looked really impressive winning the Hot Springs. And like I said earlier, he's by American Pharoah. Um, so I went 2, 9, 8 in here. Um, yeah, those are my picks for the Preakness this year.
All right, everybody, you heard it here first. There are our trifecta plays there, mine and Liam's, for the second jewel of the Triple Crown, the Preakness Stakes at Pimlico Race Course this Saturday in Baltimore, Maryland. So make sure to catch it this Saturday. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Racing Rundown. We hope you like, subscribe, and watch our future videos. We will see you back here for Preakness reaction, as well as a preview to the Belmont Stakes. When the contenders first come out, we'll kind of give you an overview, and then when the entries come out, we will be there with another video for our picks on another episode of Racing Rundown. Thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to tune in next time. That's it for this episode.